Oh, hey, welcome. Thanks for tuning in to Focus Friday from wherever you are, whether it's your living room, basement, attic, or home office. I'm glad that you're here. I'm your host, Sophia. I'm a community manager for the Trailblazer community. We manage and support several programs, including the online Trailblazer community, community groups, and Salesforce MVP program, just to name a few. If you're curious about these and you want to connect, please check out trailblazer.salesforce.com/about. You can also connect with me, your host, on Twitter @SophMata, or you can also find me on the Trailblazer community as Sofia Rodriguez Mata. I work with a wide array of our Trailblazers, including folks who organize offline and online events, which are also known as in-person and virtual events. I also happen to be a member and an organizer for a lot of these events outside of Salesforce. I participated in forums, webinars, live streams, virtual conferences, and online social events. So I've had the chance to make a lot of observations. I've experienced good virtual events and maybe not so good ones. I'm sharing with you today the tips and tricks that I've observed from hours of participating and organizing virtual events. Now, I've had the chance to speak with some of you who are a little nervous about switching to virtual events. That's okay. I want to let you know that it's not as scary or as difficult as it might seem. There's also been some shared questions and concerns when I've spoken with you, which I'll try to address in this session. If you are an events professional specializing in virtual events, the session might feel like more of a refresher for you, but I definitely encourage you and invite you to share your tips and your best practices in the chat or online. So we are going to cover format of virtual events as well as picking the right tool. We're going to talk about how you can set up for success. I'll also share some tips and tricks with you, and I'll leave you with some resources. Sound good? All right, let's get started. So for format and tools, let me hit you with a great philosophical question. What is your purpose? Now, before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's make sure that we're applying it to your virtual event. Why do you want people to meet? Are you connecting with your friends, with your family, with your customers, with people you have no prior relationship with? Are you looking to have a social gathering? Do you have a big announcement to share? Or do you want to teach something to people? Answering these type of questions will help you pick the format of your virtual event. So let's talk about the 4 popular types. We have the water cooler. This is a social gathering. Usually no predetermined agenda, or if there is, there's a very light focus on a topic. Attendees and hosts are usually free to mute and unmute themselves as they'd like, and these are typically not recorded. Webinars are usually educational, so there is usually a defined topic that's either delivered through a presentation or through a panel, sometimes both. Attendee interaction is usually done through a Q&A at the end of the presentation or session, or it can also be done throughout the session in a chat room. These are typically scheduled and they are recorded. However, people have the option to edit the recording before it's posted online or shared. I've also found that webinars usually last between 30 to 60 minutes. Then we have our live streams. So live streams are a video that is streamed immediately. It's all live, no pressure. It's not meant to be something that is pre-recorded or edited. It's a great format for performances or concerts, to play a video game online, to engage with a large amount of people at the same time, but you're not getting a lot of auditory or visual feedback from your attendees. The length of a live stream can vary. It can be anywhere between 1 quick minute to several hours. And finally, we have the conference format. Very similar to what you've probably experienced in person. You can think of the virtual conference as multiple webinars put together. These usually have a larger production value and a budget for professional gear. They can be free, sometimes they can charge for tickets, and this format usually implies to your attendees that they are looking for a polished final product. So you're looking for speakers, your resources, and your visuals to be top-notch. These four, of course, are by no means all the possible formats of having a virtual event. Other people might define these differently, but this is what we are seeing most often. So now that you picked what type of virtual event you want to host, you also want to pick the right tool for you. If you have no idea where to start, try this method. So we're going to bucket your requirements into need to have and nice to have. Then you're going to list out the features that you are looking for in these buckets. You'll likely want to consider the analytics, how your audience can participate using the tool, if it's compatible with your technology or with anything else, the cost of the tool. Is it free or do you have to pay for it? Is it a subscription or is it just a one-time thing? You also want to check if it integrates with any other tool that you're currently using or that you need to use. You also want to check out what type of permissions can be set for the organizer, the host, the speaker, and for the participants. You might also care about the registration functionality. You might not need people to register at all. You also want to make sure to check the technical requirements. These are just a few of the things to look out for. Your list might be much, much longer, but I thought I would get you started with just a few. Once you know what you need and you place them in those two buckets, you can go ahead and compare different tools. Lucky for you, there are a lot and a lot and a lot of great tools out there. So it's really going to help you out that you already thought about what you need and what would be nice to have. That way you can compare all the different tools that you find and find the perfect fit for you. All right, so you picked your tool. What's next? Well, we're going to set you up for success. Here are a couple of things that I want you to think about. First off is practicing how to use your tool. Chances are you've never really used this tool for what you're about to do. So I recommend that you watch tutorials and also review the support page for your tool. Make sure that you're dedicating plenty of time to explore the settings of your tool. Try to also replicate the environment you'll be in for the real deal. This includes testing the tool with your connectivity, knowing how to approve or remove participants, and knowing how to use breakout rooms if there are any. You'll also want to practice with any additional external tools you'll have, like an external webcam or perhaps the headphones that you'll be using for your virtual event. Just like any other presentation, you also want to make sure that you are practicing. So rehearse and record. You'll have the added benefit this time of being able to record yourself in the way that your attendees are actually going to see you in. I know it can be hard and awkward for some people, but I definitely recommend that you do record yourself delivering the presentation. This will allow you to check if the audio is okay. It should allow you to see if you need to move to center yourself, if you need to move back or forward. It's also a great time to check how you're speaking. Are you speaking in the same tone, or are you pausing and emphasizing certain words to catch your attendees' attention? It's a good time to check in the recording. I also recommend that you prepare talking points, just like Cody is doing here. This is going to be especially important for a water cooler event. You want to be ready with a set of questions or talking points to spark a conversation if you start to hear some crickets and there's a lull in the conversation. I also recommend that you assign roles. Hopefully you have co-organizers or some volunteers who are willing to help you out. Typically, you want to identify your speaker or speakers, your host or organizers, and have at least one moderator, but you might need more. I also recommend that you organize your workspace before your virtual event. As you were practicing and you recorded yourself practicing, you had a chance to check out your background. Make sure that it's up to your standards. If you need to, you can invest on a backdrop Or you can also make use of a virtual background feature that your tool might have. Not everyone is set up to have the perfect background. You might not want to share your background because of privacy concerns, so a virtual background is a great tool to use. You also want to create a drumbeat for your virtual event, just like you would for an in-person event. Creating a drumbeat is all about getting people excited about your event. There's an oversaturation right now of virtual events happening. Why should people be excited about yours? Think about that for your drumbeat. Think of how you're going to tell people about your event, whether it's a newsletter, email, or on social media. In your messaging, make sure that you're also letting your attendees know what to expect. And next for some tips on moderation. So you might be wondering, what is a moderator for a virtual event? Well, think of the last panel presentation that you attended in person. There's probably one person who is in charge of questions, right? That's the moderator. For larger events, there's usually a registration process where someone's verifying your identity, and then they give you a little lanyard with a name badge. There's also security around the larger venues. That's similar to what a moderator does virtually as well. So for your moderator, you want to make sure that they understand your tool settings. Do they have a setting where any participant immediately has their video turned on so their webcam is activated? Is everyone muted from the start, or can they speak right from the start? Do you have any firewall set up in your environment? You also want to make sure that they are aware of how you were promoting your event. So for your drumbeat, did you share your URL out to the public, to the whole wide world, or was it only shared in private forums? You also want to make sure that your moderator knows how to review the registration and how to let participants into your event. They'll also want to know how to mute and unmute participants. This is extra handy for a webinar, for example, where you might have a speaker who is sharing the presentation, but you don't want participants speaking over your speaker. So in that case, your moderator can mute everyone, and when it's time for questions or for conversation, they can go ahead and unmute people. Your moderator should also know how to accept or remove participants. If you happen to share out your URL publicly, there might be the chance that some people join that you don't want to be there. So your moderator will help you out to make sure that they are maintaining your virtual event a safe space. Your moderator is also going to help you facilitate conversation. They might be doing this through the chat, so typing for those folks who maybe don't want to be on webcam. They might be queuing up some of those conversations that are happening and getting your speaker ready. They'll also be doing the same thing for questions. So whenever the speaker takes time to pause to see if there are questions, your moderator is already going to be able to queue up those questions live. And here we see that Astro is preparing to moderate the session. You go, Astro. All right. So I feel like we are setting you up for success. So now I want to share some tips and tricks for your actual virtual event. So here are some tips to make your setup look great. We're going to start off with lighting. Whether you're looking for natural light, maybe looking to be next to a window but not facing it directly, make sure that you're checking to see how light interacts with your video. You can also check your angle. Usually what I recommend is that your forehead is aligned to the webcam. You can also amplify your angle by putting some boxes or a stand below your laptop. I also recommend that you find your center, so you don't want to be off to the side. You want to make sure that people are seeing you in the center. And also find your distance. You don't want to be too far away or too close, where it makes people a little bit uncomfortable. And again, make sure that your background is tidy, and if it's not or you can't get there, you can use a virtual background. You also want to maintain eye contact. I know this is hard because no one's actually looking at you. You don't have an audience in person. Just think of the webcam as those eyes. And if it helps, you can put some stickers to remind you to look there, or some googly eyes if you happen to have them laying around. just adding a little bit fun to your day. You also want to make sure you are aware of the noise that is around you. And if you can't help it, I definitely recommend using earphones or preferably headphones where you get better audio like this. Now, some tricks to make your setup look great. I definitely don't think that you need to invest in professional gear, especially for the events that are water cooler type or webinar type. Here you can see some pictures of what I was able to do just with my phone's flashlight, some tape, and some cardboard boxes right under my laptop. Here I also listed out which video screenshots I personally did not like. Of course, if you are having a silly water cooler type event where you're reading campfire stories, you might like the first one, so you might want to put some light under your face for that creepy campfire look. You might be wondering, how can I still have an engaging virtual event? And how can I encourage conversation? Well, it's going to start actually before your virtual event. So you want to set expectations prior to your virtual event. Let attendees know if they're expected to engage, and if they're going to be engaging through chat, through a breakout room, through questions that were predetermined before the event, or if they can mute and unmute themselves during the virtual event to ask questions and talk. You also want to establish the ground rules in your introduction. This can be as simple as letting your attendees know how to use the tool. Always assume that someone has not used the tool, so make sure that you are walking folks through how to use the tool properly and how you want them to use it. You also want to encourage users to share their cameras so it feels like an actual conversation where you are talking with people. But remember that some people might not be comfortable with that. So you can also offer an alternative and ask people to participate in the chat if they're not comfortable with turning on their webcam. You can also utilize icebreakers or breakout rooms if your tool has this functionality. And icebreakers can be virtualized or digitized just from what you do in in-person events. Or you can also look for tools that are actually intended for virtual events. You can also enhance your meeting with technology. There are a lot of browser extensions and extra features for certain tools that allow you to do this. You should also think about when you're pausing throughout your virtual event and how you're asking your attendees to participate. Now, if you are looking for a lot of conversation during your virtual event, I typically recommend that you're checking in every 3 to 5 minutes and you're inviting folks to participate. Don't force them into participating, but invite them into participating. You can also lean into your talking points, which you already prepared, if there is a lull in conversation. Now remember, silence is okay. Sometimes people are processing what you just said. Let that silence last a little bit. But if you are noticing that the silence is increasing to that uncomfortable situation, then you can go ahead and lean on your talking points to spark conversation again. I also recommend that you say or that you write your attendee's name. People love to hear their names. They're going to be more likely to engage in conversation if you call them out directly by name. And finally, I definitely recommend that you use the grid view so you can see all of your attendees' videos and faces throughout your presentation. There's a good way to read the room and to also help attendees feel like they're at an event and they're engaging with other people. Now it's time for the trick time. So I took some great screenshots of my coworkers. Here on the left-hand side is our amazing creative team on Team Trailhead. They are using a Snapchat filter to look a tad bit younger, and they're also using a browser extension for Google Meets that allows them to see each other through grid view. And on the right-hand side is my team. We're embracing the fun. We decided to be silly. Fun is one of the core values of the Trailblazer community. It's really at the heart of everything that we do. So don't be afraid to lean into that fun and be silly. Here we'll be having a bit of dress up. We're wearing silly hats, silly robes. and it was a fun event. We used Zoom for this water cooler event with a grid view. And I'll do a little pop quiz. Let me know if you can spot who is using a virtual background in the second picture. Let me know what you think. And finally, some resources. The first one is on Trailhead. So this is a virtual collaboration badge. The second one is actually a community resource. So it is a Quip spreadsheet that was created by Amy. Shout out to @SalesforceAmy for creating this. And community members are putting down their virtual events here that they are either hosting or organizing. So if you feel like you need some inspiration, or you just want to connect with other members of the Trailblazer community, definitely check out the second resource. And finally, of course, feel free to reach out to me as a resource. Again, you can find me on Twitter @SofMata. You can also find me on the Trailblazer community. I'd be happy to share any additional resources with you or help you through your next virtual event. And again, thank you so much for joining me for Focus Friday. This was so much fun. I hope you learned something about how to host a virtual event. And please stay safe, be healthy, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again for joining us for Focus Friday. I'll see you around.